Automatically started.
Okay, I'm gonna start over. We're recording now. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome. My name is Glenn Haight, Commissioner and Chair of the Commercial Fisheries Entry Commission. Today is February 12th, 2025, Wednesday. It's 10:05.
Yep.
And we are calling in from Juneau, and there's also a number of folks calling in from other places. We've got a listening ability here. We have no one in the room from the public, but we do have some staff here. We'll do some introductions in a minute. This is a public meeting of the Commission conducted in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. The meeting was noticed in the Alaska Online Public Notice System and sent to interested parties. Their public access here in the room and through our call-in number. So what I'd like to do, if I could, is introduce staff and first turn it to Commissioner Green.
Thank you, everybody. I am the other commissioner of the Commercial Fisheries Entry Commission. I'm Commissioner Rick Green, and I am calling from my house in Anchorage, where I do my office out of. And thank you all for being here. And as Glenn pointed out, this is a public meeting, and I'll let him introduce staff.
Thank you. I will do so, and hopefully I can see everyone that we've got. With me here in the room is our Executive Director, Mele Make. Hi, Mele.
Hi, thank you for being here.
Yep. And our research lead, Reed Johnson, is here as well.
Good morning.
And we've got everyone else except for Jennifer on staff muted, so I'll just read your names off and make sure hopefully I get everyone. We've got Jennifer Finley, our law specialist, who'll be participating quite a bit today.
Good morning.
Good morning. And we've got Sally Colhase with our research section, Dan Strong, again with our research section, Heather Crondall, our IT lead, and Robin Loreth, our adjudications and hearing officer lead. I think that's what we've got from the staff on today. And thanks to Josh Sanders in our IT shop for shepherding us through that start. So I'll quickly review the agenda and then we'll jump into it. I'll spend a little bit of time discussing authorities, but the main items are to look at lowering the 2025 Prince William Sound herring gillnet permit fee. We've got a couple issues dealing with proposed regs for the Cook Inlet Salmon gillnet fishery. And then we want to provide an update on the Kodiak herring food and bait optimum number study report and where we're at with that. So it's a dynamic situation. Does anyone else have anything that you want to add to the commissioner? You good? Oh, well, if you mute yourself, we've got to ask you to unmute. So here, let me do this.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, I just wanted to add that we are meeting with members of the restricted access management over at NOAA, and we have a meeting with them on some information sharing that we do by the end of the week. And for those who are following that, Executive Director Mele Make and I will be meeting with them on Friday and trying to work that out. So thank you.
Yeah, we typically get information from them to help us with setting IFQ permit fees that had at one point come in February, but we're being told now it's not going to come till April, and that's not really cool. So good luck with that. I wish you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, I was hit on item 2 is discussing authorities. I was admonished a while back from the Department of Law for not clearly stating authorities. So I'll jump into it. The first one deals with quorum, and we need 2 commissioners to have a quorum, and we have that, so we're good there. And the duties and powers sections, item 1 to regulate entry into fisheries. We'll be talking about the Kodiak food and bait fishery that relates to that. Establish qualifications for the issuance of entry permits. Again, the Kodiak food and bait item deals with this. Establish for all types of gear the optimum number of entry permits. Kodiak food and bait item again. Administering a buyback program. It is under the Kodiak food and bait, and also issuing new permits as well. Provide for the transfer and reissuance of entry permits for alternative types of legal gear. Our proposed regs touch on that as well as the Kodiak food and bait. Establish and administer the collection of annual fees. We'll be talking about that under the Prince William Sound fee discussion.
Right.
Establish a moratorium on the entry of commercial fisheries as provided in AS 1643-225. That does relate to the Kodiak discussion. We'll touch on that a little bit. In Alaska Statute 1643-110, it deals with regulations and hearing procedures, and our proposed regs touch on that. This meeting is conducted in accordance with the Open Meetings Act, which is found in the Administrative Procedures Act, but that also relates to our proposed reg project, and we have authorities to initiate work through that. Again, I touched on the optimum numbers, revisions, buybacks, new permits issued. That's under AS 16-290 through 330. That relates to the Kodiak food and bait fishery. And then in 1643-950, it's called Application of Regulations of the Board of Fish. And basically it says nothing in this chapter limits the powers of the Board of Fish. So we just want to touch on that when we get to the Kodiak food and bait. So that was a mouthful. Anyone else have any other authorities we can rely on?
No, sounds like you covered it.
All right. Okay. First item on the agenda, or the third, but of substance, is this request to lower 2025 Prince William Sound herring gillnet permit fees. So I'll explain what I think the situation is, and then Reed's going to correct me on the parts that I mess up. So yeah, this fishery hasn't occurred since late 90s. And so we haven't charged anyone for it since then. And I guess the last time we left off, it was at $600, and we just didn't change that when we rolled into our permits this year. However, it's great that they might be able to open the fishery. And so certainly isn't going to be worth $600. That's based on economic value. And so so the request was to lower it, I'm assuming, to $75, but maybe I could have Reed tell us provide a better overview.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Reed Johnson. I am the research section lead for the Commercial Fisheries Entry Commission. So you are correct. This fishery hasn't opened since 1998, starting in 1989 with the Exxon Valdez oil spill. That shut down the fishery initially, and then the fishery was plagued by H-class failures and economic issues since then. So it opened intermittently between 1989 and 1998. And this is a limited entry fishery, so the fees are calculated based upon the value of the permit. It has been quite a few years since a permit was brought or sold in this fishery. In addition, there hasn't been a fishery since 1998, so these fees have been waived. The way the calculation works out, this fishery is estimated to go for $141,000 for the limited entry permit. Again, there hasn't been a permit bought or sold in this fishery for quite a few years. Recently, the Department of Fish and Game has decided that there is enough biomass to award GHL to the various permit groups. For the gillnet permit, which is the permit in question, the G34E permit, that GHL is 121 short tons. There are probably going to be 19 permit holders participating in this fishery at $844 a ton, according to the next closest area, which is Southeast. It doesn't really make sense economically for somebody to pay $600 to participate in a fishery where they're splitting 121 tons among 19 permit holders. The predicted average earnings in such a fishery, if all of the GHL was harvested, would be about $500 or $5,000 per person. So it's our recommendation that we base the fee upon what we think the average gross income would be. And in that case, the calculation works out to $75 per permit holder. Keep in mind, this could still be waived. Fish and Game has been very clear that although there is a GHL, if too many people register, or if they think that the GHL is going to be, it's going to be hard for them to manage so that only the GHL is taken, they might not open the fishery. So it does depend on registration also. But if it does open, we would recommend that the fee be $75.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Reed. And I appreciate you. I don't think I even mentioned that this was the gillnet permit. So, yeah, thanks for that. So, go ahead, please.
One other thing. So there is GHL for the other permit groups in this fishery, but those fees are already set at $75.
Yeah, because we had some recent for that. Yeah. Thank you. So I maybe should have asked for us to make a motion first to do this, but maybe if we could do that, make a motion to.
Yeah.
Great if I could get you to do that.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the recommended fee of $75 for
Great,
the
thanks.
herring fishery. Yes.
Great, thanks. I'll second that. And then, yeah, do you have any questions, Commissioner Green of Reed?
No, I don't have really any questions. I don't know if he had mentioned, but you know, for those listening, and maybe he did mention, the fee has been waived over and over and over again by the commission since there hasn't been a fishery. I think it's very promising that we could possibly have a fishery again. And in my opinion, it would be very reasonable to lower it this time, knowing that if the fishery is executed, then we are going to have some economics, and we can talk about different fees maybe in the future. But I think it's very reasonable, and that would be my discussion and thoughts on the said question.
Great, thank you, Commissioner. Just the only thing I would just mention, and you did mention this, is that the same permit fee is $75. So I just can't imagine charging the fishery that's a lower volume more. So, well, if there's nothing else, I'll call the question. Ms. Finley, do you mind?
Yes, on the question of setting the fee for this fishery at $75, Commissioner Green
I vote yes.
and Commissioner Haight.
Yep,
All right, motion is passed.
that is done. Great, thank you. The next item we have here is two items, 4 and 5. Maybe we can bring them together a little bit. The first item 4 is we need to set a decision date for the current ongoing proposed regulation to add dip net gear in the Cook Inlet Salmon gillnet permit category, and that's SO4E, I think. So yeah, a little background on this one. The Board of Fish over a year ago, they allowed dip nets to be part of the gear type for Eastside Set Net fleet in Cook Inlet. We had to do concurrent or joining regulations for that. We put out a proposed reg in April. The immediate comments were, I maybe say visceral, but they were not happy with having dip nets added. But in that process, our proposed regs weren't going to be done in time, so we put out emergency regs, and those were effective immediately and lasted through the summer. But when the decision came to decide whether to adopt the permanent proposed regs, I voted no on that because of all the comments that we received. But it said at the time, if those who are using this want us to make it permanent, please petition us. And so we received that petition and had a good exchange with a number of folks on this, and that while they didn't make anything near what they would make with their SetNet operation, you know, folks made some money and they wanted to give this a shot. So I think that petition came in August. We weren't able to get the proposed regs out until October. Ms. Finley can correct me on all of this. We had a public hearing in October in Soldotna. That was great to go do that. And the public comment period, I think, ended November 22nd, something like that. So we've yet to set a decisional date for it, and so we wanted to talk about that. And so, Ms. Finley, you have anything to add to that recount?
Not on the dip nets, no, other than just discussion for the date to set the meeting.
Okay, great, thanks. Commissioner Green, anything to add to that?
Yeah, well, you know, it'll be it was interesting taking the public hearing testimony that we took in Soldotna. I greatly appreciate everyone who came out. What I was most taken with was by the positivity of some of those people who were trying to make it happen and actually did make some money, which I think is reflective of, if we allow fishermen opportunity, if there is a way, they're going to find it. Their creativity is second to none in the world, and I think we have some of the most skilled and innovative fishermen anywhere in the world, which is why we in Alaska produce 60% of America's seafood product, and it's really our fishermen that do so. And some of them testifying in that meeting were really exemplary of that, and I commend them for doing so.
Thank you. Thanks for that. I agree. I'm gonna just roll into item 5 then, because
Yeah.
I think the decision date for both the dip net and the beach seine regs could be the same day. On item 5, adding beach seine gear to the Cook Inlet Salmon gillnet permit category. You know, the Board of Fish did accept an agenda change request at its work session in October to add this to the March meeting to see if this could be another gear type. And so, you know, we were able to get ahead of that and get some, well, let me ask Ms. Finley to offer some updates on timing, if I could.
Okay, so for the beach seine, we have tried to get on the front side of this so that if the Board of Fish does pass and allow for beach seine gear to happen, we here at the CFEC, we will not be having to play catch up or do emergency regs and more meetings. It will be a matter of, if they pass it, then we will be able to have our meeting and you guys can decide, you know, if the CFEC will add that as a gear type, rather than playing catch up after the fact. The only thing I would say is that there was a little bit of a delay in us getting in the front of this due to the beginning of the legislative season, but we're very thankful that that has gotten to the point where we can get this notice out, hopefully this week, for whatever meeting date that you guys set, and then we'll see what happens at the Board of Fish meeting.
Thank you. Yes, we will find out. So, okay, so the Board of Fish meeting ends the 16th of March, I think, pretty sure. And then Ms. Finley, if we're able to get these regs out, you know, this week, you know, they have
Yes.
to go for 30 days before for public comment.
So
We could, oh yes, you want to follow up on that?
yeah, I was just going to say, if we have, I would say that we would be able to get notice out no later than by this Friday. So if we use that as our latest date, then that would put us out for a 30 days notice, ending end of day on the 18th of March. So the soonest that we could do a meeting would be March 19th. And looking at the time frame of processing the regs, if they were passed, back through the Department of Law, and making sure they, you know, get to Lieutenant Governor's office in time for being there for the season to start, I would say we should have a meeting no later than Friday, March the 21st. So anytime between the 19th and the 21st. I know that's a little bit of a small window, but I think it would give us the best opportunity to make sure that everything is in place for our fishermen once the season does start, if everything passes.
Thanks for that. The one thing, just for people listening in who aren't familiar with the reg process, we have to get approval from the Department of Law to put out the regs. That's what took a lot of time, but we have that approval now. Once we put it out, we're required to wait 30 days for public comment. So that's what Ms. Finley was talking about. We then need to respond to some of the comments. We need to do some work on the front end of making that decision. So that's the only thing, you know, that I want to make sure we have enough time to do. We would only have 2 days to do it if we had a meeting on the 21st, which I'm fine with. I think we can do it, but I just want to point that out. Do you have any
And it's possible we may have a little bit more of a buffer if I'm able to get, you know, meeting notice out today,
Right.
which honestly would be the hope. And if we were to do it on the 21st, that would give us a little more like a 4 or 5 day buffer,
Okay.
for responding to things, if that's helpful.
Yeah, it is. So, yeah, okay. And then thank you for that. And the other end of this is that once we make a decision, that has to go back to Department of Law. They need some time to make sure it's okay. They always make some tweaks. Even though literally each of these regs are 17 words each. But then once they're done, it has to go to the Lieutenant Governor's office for 30 days. No matter what, it just sits there, and then it can become effective. And I think for anyone who's considering a beach seine, There's going to be a lot of study and some investment, and then you got to source the material, you got to get it there, you got to test it. So you guys need time to get that done. So I'm fine to do the 21st. Rick, does that work for you?
Yeah, 21st works for me. And also I would like to point out that there was a commissioner's permit issued last year, and they did do that. And there is a report on that on the Fish and Game website, should anyone want to read how that played out. And the 21st would be great for me. I think that will give us time to digest all of the public comment, which we both, and time to respond to those that we need to respond to.
Yeah, that's great. Yep, and we'll have all of the input received at the Board of Fish meeting too. That's really the place to vet these things. So that'll be helpful.
Yeah, very.
We'll pay attention to what gets reported at the Board of Fish as well. So great. Okay, thanks. The 21st. So and then Ms. Finley will get out notices to that effect and update the Cook Inlet, the dip net notice as well. All right, so the next item is the Kodiak herring food and bait fishery. And so we'll talk a little bit about how this thing's evolving. There's no decision to be made here. We just want to update folks on where we're at. Again, very dynamic. So we received, there's a couple things, a couple threads to follow here. We received a petition, I would tell you October of 2023, if not October, then September. And it was asking us to issue more permits in the fishery. It also pointed to how the fishery was too exclusive, which is in the Constitution, the fishery can't be too exclusive. So it's an important consideration. We looked at that petition and agreed to start an optimum number study to look to see what the right number should be, because that's what we would have to do if we we're going to issue more permits. In doing that, we could also possibly address the question of exclusivity, although maybe not completely, but we would begin to nibble around the edges on that. So we did conduct that optimum number study. Before I get to that, though, a little bit about the fishery. It's very interesting. We have several limited entry herring fisheries in Kodiak, and when I say several, there's really two. There's the Sacro and the food and bait. But the way CFEC set it up, there's technically, for instance, for the food and bait, there's two fisheries. There's a trawl fishery and a seine fishery.
Mm-hmm.
We have 4 trawl permits that have never fished in that limited entry fishery, and we have 5 seine permits. And the way it's organized is that because of conservation and management concerns, Fish and Game can only let one boat go at a time. So those 9 permit holders have, over the years, formed a cooperative arrangement of sorts, and so only one boat fishes. That remains a concern throughout this whole process. I mean, in terms of fisheries, in terms of the management situation. So concurrent sort of with the petition we received, there was a proposal to the Board of Fish that was vetted in January of 2024 in the Kodiak meeting, and that was to move that was to create 2 seasons, an A season and a B season for herring, and to move what's currently allocated to the Sacro fishery to allow for some of that to move to the fall, to a food fishery.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to make notice to the Board of Fish that if they chose to do that, we'd have some work on our end, and that we were already working on this optimum number study. So the board put that on hold, or actually they failed that proposal to wait for CFEC to do its work. However, more recently, at the last Southeast meeting, the board generated a new proposal, which is effectively proposal 57, which they'll be vetting again in the upcoming meeting in March. So I'll stop there and turn to Reed on the optimum number study. Maybe you can tell us what you came up with for those.
So the optimum number study for the food and bait fishery for the seine and gillnet permits was completed in September of 2024. It found that there was an optimum number, an economic optimum number of between 11 and 15 permits. As far as the management optimum number, that was considerably lower, someplace between 0 and 6, dependent upon whether or not the trawl permits were able to go fish. So taking those two things into mind, we came up with an optimum number of somewhere between 1 and 15 permits. So there could be a couple more permits participating within this fishery. And for the trawl permits, that optimum number was completed in January of 2025. This was a departure from previous methods because there's never been any participation in this fishery, largely due to the way the combine was formed. Fish and Game has also explicitly said that they would be hesitant to allow competitive fishery at all if all of the trawl permits were going to fish. So the optimum number for the trawl permits was effectively found to be 0.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Green, do you have any questions for Rick or anything else to catch us up on here?
For Reed, no, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for that work, Reed. It's very insightful.
Okay, thank you. Great, thanks. Okay, so what happens now for those who may not know necessarily, when CFEC establishes an optimum number, that goes into regulation, which means we would have to propose a reg and run through that process. And we've been working on that. So the elements are kind of interesting, and unfortunately the statutes aren't great for the scenario we have in front of us. But the one thing we were looking at doing was establishing an optimum number for this is for the food and bait, establishing an optimum number for the seine gillnet permit category at 15, and then establishing the optimum number for the trawl fishery at 0. And so those trigger two different things. If you increase the number of outstanding permits, then we would issue more. Okay. And I think the language on that is it needs to be issued at fair market value. And we thought we could accomplish that. Again, all this has to be carved out in reg, but we thought we could accomplish that through an auction. Open up an auction, have some qualification criteria, and see what we get. And then and we would just whoever had the highest bids, we would work it until we got down to issuing 10 new permits. And on the other side, for trawl, if you lower a number, then you have to, the next step is to buy back those permits. The way it's envisioned in statute is that there's an assessment on the fishery, there's a tax basically that builds up, and then you can buy those permits out. These trawl operators are not operating, so there is no assessment. There's nothing we could do in that regard. So the idea was to take the average fair market value from our issuing new seine and gillnet permits, and use that as the buyback for the trawl permits. So if the average price of a permit that got issued in the seine gill was $40,000, that would be the buyback for a trawl permit. All of that would have to go through regulation, a proposed reg. And I'm not even sure, maybe I'll turn to Ms. Finley. I'm not even sure that, if we could do it according to statute, but that's sort of where we were at. Ms. Finley, do you have any comments on that whole thought process?
It's a very complex interplay of the Limited Entry Act and what Board of Fish does and what the CFEC has authority to do. And some things that we contemplate or have been contemplating may not be doable, depending on what Board of Fish takes up in regards to I guess there's the ACR regarding this fishery. It's been long and complex, and we've talked about a lot of things, and there may be several routes forward that we could take without getting into too many specifics as to what all the options might be, because that might take all day. I think we talked about a lot of things, and we will just kind of have to see where we shake out after the next Board of Fish meeting.
Yeah, no, agreed. Yeah, we have just functionally, we're not gonna continue with our proposed reg process until we see what the board does. I don't know, read it in terms of have you have any comments at this point in terms of the Board of Fish action or the?
So, do you want me to go into detail about the proposal? For the record?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, so There is an agenda change request for accepted at the Southeast meeting here just recently, which resulted in a board generated proposal 316. This proposal effectively gets rid of the sacro fishery and would implement a herring fishery if this proposal was passed. The result of that for CFEC would be that we do not issue sacro permits for the fishery. Those would still exist, but they wouldn't be used to participate in the fishery. What would be used to participate in the fishery would be a herring permit. This herring permit would effectively be a open entry permit, which would allow somebody to harvest both sacro in the spring and food and bait in the fall. There is a potential conflict with the food and bait permits in the fall. This proposal does not address that conflict. The food and bait permits would still exist. They would still be limited entry. So you would have a situation in which there were more participants in a fishery that was already previously limited. There are ways that this proposal could be changed so that would not happen. I'm not going to get into those at the time. It's strictly the purview of the Board of Fish. The end result for us is that it's not really pertinent to go through the rest of this regulatory process if we don't know if the fishery is going to exist or if there's going to be a conflict in this fishery after this proposal passes.
Right.
So yeah, I'm eagerly looking to see what is going to happen at the statewide meeting with herring for Kodiak.
Well, and Commissioner Haight, I think it's important to note for those listening who don't know that a fishing has to start open. We cannot limit it before it opens.
That is correct. Yes, the fishery
Yeah.
has to start as open entry. We cannot go from an open entry fishery immediately into a limited entry fishery. We have to go through a limitation process, which takes a lot of time.
Takes a lot of time.
Mhm.
It all
And
takes
data.
Yeah.
Right.
And if I may, there is one other thing I'd like to say is this: through the process that we've taken to this point, I think that it has become clear that the two processes that we were originally looking at, the possibility of a buyback for one type for like the trawl permits, or the issuance of new permits such as the gillnet seine, that the process is much more complex than what is outlined in statutes in the Limited Entry Act, and that we do not have a concrete process in place in regulation for how to handle these going forward. And so even if we're not able to go forward at the moment with the specifics of the Kodiak herring fishery, that it may behoove the CFEC to work on either statutory change requests to clarify some things, or a regulatory process that seeks to clarify some of the more detailed steps that would happen if the process were ever to go forward in the future, which at this point, neither of these processes has ever actually been overseen by the CFEC. So I'll just kind of throw that those general procedures may be helpful for us to establish at this point.
Yeah, thank you for that. Rick, do you have any follow-up?
No. Thank you though.
Yeah, so I think it casts it pretty well. We're sort of in a wait and see position, but I think it's gonna be helpful for us to get some very strong legal advice. In terms of how we treat this, should the board adopt this proposal? That would be very interesting. It's gonna be important for a lot of people to know what actions will follow. We have options, not to speculate, but if it happens, we rewrote this optimum number study to consider, what would happen if there was more allocation, more GHL. So it could be that there would be an optimum number that would increase the number of permits even more in the food and bait fishery. We'll see what the board does. They have the ability to table a proposal and work on it if it's not ready to go, but that's obviously up to them. There's another feature too, just to make note of it, because I don't think it's too well known, but the Department of Fish and Game can request CFEC establish a moratorium in an open access fishery. They need to get the board's approval, but that's a mechanism that's never actually been used. And I don't exactly know how it would work here in an open access fishery that's never been open before. Like, who do you limit to go into?
Yeah.
So these are all
Yeah.
new areas we get to work with. So I guess that's kind of interesting.
Well, and I guess it's also important to point out that there are also some constitutional barriers that we're also up against and facing on trying to come up with a new buyback method.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's dynamic. Well, the one thing I want to flag here is we intend to try to schedule a public hearing in Kodiak during Comfish.
Yeah.
So we'll know a lot more by then, and then I'm sure we'll be talking to a lot of people from Kodiak about this. And so we'll be able to vet the situation a bit more. So we don't have a date set for that, but we'll work on that here pretty soon.
Very good.
Right. Well, that's all. I don't, Commissioner Green, anything else to add? Or
No, I was just gonna say, if we're getting close, I would make a motion to adjourn.
okay. I will do it in 1 second. I want to make sure staff, Melee or you guys, everyone good? Okay.
Yep.
Well, with that, then, thank you for that motion. I'll second it, and we'll adjourn at 10:40. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.